my best friend and one of my worst enemies. I love hanging out with him all the time because we share the same taste in music, and I always get to steal his awesome band t-shirts. But we don't always get along. You see, my brother likes to play me in video games, and since he is a teenage boy, he is obviously a lot better than I am as a teenage girl. So we always have battles in our basement playing each other in NBA 2K11, and he usually wins, and I get extremely frustrated. But one time, a couple weeks ago, we were playing, and I actually beat him. I was the Boston Celtics, and he was the Bulls, and I won after a very long, drawn-out game. But what I learned from this was that no matter what happened that day with that video game battle, there was always good in the end, because I did end up winning, but I also was getting to hang out with my brother. This same idea can be seen in today's quotation, "April showers bring May flowers." Now, this is a very common quotation that we've probably all heard in our lives, and it means that when it rains in April, it's going to make all the flowers grow in May. But it means so much more than that. And the fact that no matter what goes on in April when there's disgusting rain, it will bring something better in the end. And it represents the idea that there will always be good in the end. No matter what happens in April, there will always be that amazing May. So let's look at a few examples of people who had to learn this. First, we can look to Sammy Hagar. Second, we can look to the movie Dead Poets Society. And lastly, we can look to Rosa Parks. But first, let's take a look at Sammy Hagar. Now, Sammy Hagar was known for being the lead singer in Van Halen. He took over after David Lee Roth left. And he was so excited to get to be able to play with these awesome Van Halen brothers, Eddie Van Halen on guitar and Alex Van Halen on drums. But it wasn't all fun and games. The three of them actually fought all the time, and the brothers hated Sammy Hagar with a passion. So they decided to kick him out of the band. And Sammy was lost because he didn't know what he was going to do with his music career. So he went down to Cabo Wabo and started his own tequila business, but then ended up getting back into music, and he developed a very successful solo career. His April was extremely crazy because he had all those showers and feuds with the Van Halen brothers. But he knew that in the end he would always find what he loved, which happened to be music, and that would be what would carry him forward. For Sammy Hagar, he had his horrible months of April, but he had those amazing May flowers, and he learned that everything will always turn out okay in the end. Although things with Van Halen weren't always picture perfect, he did get what he wanted in the end and keep his love of music, and everything turned out okay. Someone else who finds out that everything turns out okay is the main character in the movie Dead Poets Society. Dead Poets Society stars Robin Williams in a more serious role, and he is the teacher John Keating at a very strict prep school. And he decides to teach his students all these different philosophies that aren't in the curriculum. He teaches them to carpe diem and seize the day. And he doesn't like to stick to all of the strict philosophies that are in the school. He develops his own. And because of this, when the school finds out what he's teaching his students, they decide to send him away. And he's not allowed to teach there anymore. But he learns in the last scene of the movie that all his students respect him, and that he was able to teach them valuable lessons in their lives. Because of all of the teachings from John Keating, these students had more fun in their lives, and they learned to talk to girls, or to go out and just have fun for a night instead of studying all the time. So while teaching at Welton Prep School wasn't always sunny for John Keating, he learned that everything turned out okay in the end. Although it wasn't the storybook ending that he wanted for his teaching career, he ended up making a very good impression on many young lives. And I know that's exactly what teachers are trying to do. So John Keating had all of his April showers, but he learned that in the end there will always be that good and those May flowers. So lastly, let's look to Rosa Parks, who finds out that her April showers and May flowers have to do with the civil rights movement. In the 1960s, there was complete segregation between African Americans and whites. There was something called separate but equal, but they weren't really equal. African Americans had separate bathrooms and separate facilities that they could use, and they weren't allowed to use the same ones as white people. And on the bus, they were not allowed to sit if there were too many white people. They had to give up their seats so that the Caucasians could sit down. But one day, Rosa Parks decided that she wasn't going to let this happen, and she put her foot down and said that she would not give up her seat. And this was a huge turning point in the civil rights movement, because it inspired other people to step up and speak out against all the wrongs that were going on. And so for Rosa Parks, the whole civil rights movement was completely shaky, because she wasn't sure if she was going to get what she wanted and get that equality. But she fought through all those April showers and knew that in the end some good would come out of it. And that's exactly what it did, because today things are getting more equal as time goes on, and she was able to make an influence on history, and she was able to move forward and know that everything was going to be okay in the end. She was able to get her May flowers. So when thinking back to that commonplace cliche quotation, April showers bring May flowers, it's apparent that there will always be good in the end. And we saw this through 3 examples. First, we look at Sammy Hagar with Van Halen. Second, we looked at the movie Dead Poets Society. And lastly, we looked at Rosa Parks with the Civil Rights Movement. In each of these examples, things got extremely hairy for people, and they didn't know if everything was going to be okay. But just as in today's quotation, it's clear that there will always be good in the end. So when thinking back to my video game battles with my brother, I know that while I do get extremely frustrated every time I lose, maybe one day I will have that glory again and get to have the title of being the best NBA 2K11 player in my household.